It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for meeting me here. Could you first tell me who you are, what you do here at NATO?
Sure. Well, it's a pleasure to meet you, Abe. So I'm Angus Lapsley. I'm the British ambassador and what we call permanent representative to NATO. And my job is to be part of the decision-making process here in NATO, where we take decisions as allies about how we keep Europe safe, how do we protect the transatlantic alliance.
And so, what does the job of ambassador? What does it mean? What do you do on a daily basis?
Sure. Well, look, the way NATO works is we have 32 allies, and for most big decisions, those 32 allies have to agree. They have to take those decisions collectively. We can't impose decisions on allies. And to do that, we have something called the North Atlantic Council, which meets 2 or 3 times a week. And I sit on that council as an ambassador, and we exchange information and we take decisions that help guide the alliance.
And so, you're the ambassador of a delegation to NATO. I think a lot of people don't know what a delegation to NATO is. Could you clarify that maybe
Sure.
a bit more?
Well, look, one of the things about NATO is we are full of strange language designed to confuse ourselves. But a delegation is basically it's an embassy. So I'm an ambassador and a permanent representative, and I head what in any other context we would call an embassy. And our job is to make sure that what the UK thinks NATO should do is properly represented here in the alliance, but also to listen to what the Netherlands or Germany or France want and make sure we understand that and take the right decisions.
Okay, and so what would you say is the most important thing that the UK brings to the table when it comes to NATO?
Well, we, like the Netherlands, are one of the founding members of NATO. We were here right back in 1949, and we've got that continuity of engagement in the alliance. We're also one of the biggest defence actors in Europe. We're a nuclear power. We have nuclear weapons, and our nuclear weapons are committed to the alliance, so that if NATO needs our nuclear weapons, they can ask for them. So that gives us, I think, probably quite a special role at the heart of the alliance. But we're also a country with a kind of global outlook. So we bring our diplomatic expertise, our understanding of the world to the alliance.
Yeah, I mean, so you would say, the UK is kind of has a very important role in NATO.
We certainly like to think so. Yeah. No. I mean, as I said, we've been here since the beginning. We're one of the larger countries in the alliance. We're also a European country, so we look across the Atlantic and also into continental Europe. So that sort of geography is very important. I mean, if you go right back to the 1940s, when Europe was liberated from the Nazi challenge, that liberation came from Britain, and there's a reason for that. That's the nature of our geography. We also look outwards to the North Atlantic, which is hugely important to how we defend Europe. So that's another part of how our geography puts us in a central position.
Yeah, and just to get back to your role as ambassador, maybe I think a lot of people my age are interested in getting into diplomacy.
Yeah.
What are your main tips, your main advice to get into diplomacy?
Well, it took me a long time, so maybe I'm not the best person to advise. But look, I think you've got to be curious about the world. You've got to be curious about how the world is changing and what we need to understand about it. You've got to like dealing with people. You've got to like engaging people. It helps to have a bit of an affinity for languages, but people in your country are normally amazingly good at languages, so that's probably not a difficult challenge. And then you've got to have a bit of patience, actually. It can be quite a long process in most of our countries to get into the diplomatic service. So have a little bit of patience. But there is one great way of working at NATO, which is we have internships here. There's an open scheme that you can compete for. They are absolutely great jobs when you get them, and they're a brilliant way of feeling your way into international diplomacy and defence work.
And so we spoke about this a bit before this interview, that you worked at NATO for quite a long time before becoming the UK ambassador.
Yeah.
But maybe, what's one thing that surprised you when you first arrived to NATO about the alliance?
I think if you work in a larger country like the UK, then we are quite self-sufficient in lots of ways. And NATO is important to us because it's how we would meet the most serious challenges, particularly Russia, with our allies. I think if you come from one of the smaller countries in Europe, then NATO is much more the foundation of everything that you do. And I think when I worked for NATO, I realized just how much influence NATO has in our smaller allies, which came as a bit of a surprise to somebody from the UK.
Yeah, who brings more, or maybe, how can you put it, brings more to the table than they actually take away from it?
Sometimes, yeah. Or we can operate nationally in other parts of the world in a way perhaps some smaller countries in Europe don't. So I think you should never underestimate how much traction NATO has across the continent, and that for me meant working here was an absolute pleasure because I was able to work intimately with governments, in The Hague or in Stockholm or in Lisbon or wherever it was in Europe, talk to those governments about what NATO needed from them and how we could move things forward.
And so tomorrow, on that subject, tomorrow's a pretty big day here in Brussels. There's the Ministerial of Defense Ministers, as the name says it, where 32 countries come together at a ministerial level. What's going to be your role in that, your part?
Sure. So my role during a ministerial is to support my minister. So the UK Defense Minister, John Healey, he will arrive this evening, and my role is to accompany him, make sure he's in the right place at the right time. Never in any job, particularly in diplomacy, it's all about logistics. So make sure your minister's where he needs to be or she needs to be at the right time. But then you're also there to help and support them with advice. What is the best way of making an argument? That's a key thing that diplomats always think about. What's going to work with this audience? And then if he needs to pop out of the room, then I'm there to take the chair and carry on representing the UK.
And so what is the hardest thing you're going to have to do tomorrow, and the part you're looking forward to the most?
Well, the hardest thing on a ministerial day is always timekeeping. All of the ministers have super busy schedules, normally starting from very early in the morning until the end of the day. So the hardest part is to nudge things along and say, actually, we need to move to the next meeting and we need to do that quickly. I think what you enjoy in these kind of things is you have a level of political interaction. And your politicians are different to diplomats. Diplomats, we live in a world where we're dealing with professionals, we all have a similar outlook on the world, and we know how to find agreements. Politicians are different. They represent their countries, they represent their politics in a more visceral way, and you always learn from listening to politicians talking to each other. That gives you a different insight into why a country feels the way it does about something, because it actually resonates in their country's population, and that's one of the strengths of NATO is we are 32 democracies, and we don't always agree on everything. But that's in democracies we never do. But you learn so much from hearing how politicians describe what it is their own country is thinking and why.
So is that something the youth should also take an interest in and actively participate in?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm not a politician. I'm a professional diplomat and civil servant. But I think it is hugely important that young people are involved in politics today, because ultimately politicians take decisions in democracies. Getting the best quality people into politics with all sorts of varied backgrounds, whether that's how diverse their backgrounds are, what their political traditions are. You need young people in politics. It's absolutely critical. NATO would not work if we didn't get good quality people into politics.